The room was colder than usual, and it wasn't just the atmospheric regulators. Something in the air, a thick silence, too dense to breathe, hung like a veil over the council chamber. Delegates from 100 worlds sat motionless, as if trying to process the same line of data that had just scrolled across their holoscreens. The United Terran Coalition hereby withdraws from all Galactic Council diplomatic activities effective immediately. No further negotiations will be pursued. This decision is final. No explanation, no warning, just a cold, clinical transmission from the humans. Ambassador Kral of the Valari kept blinking his outer eyelids, an involuntary sign of distress. "Surely this is a glitch," he muttered, his voice shrill with desperation. "The Terrans wouldn't just leave." But they had. Their embassy was empty. Communications were dark. Not even a signal ping returned from their moon base in Sector Theta 9. One by one, every open diplomatic channel with humanity had gone quiet. Counselor Ozkek, a reptilian from the core Rim species Drek, slammed a clawed fist on the obsidian table. "This is madness. We depended on their mediation with the Zarn conflicts. We need them for the Krolt-Fenri peace accords. Their absence jeopardizes the entire stability of this quadrant." He wasn't wrong. In just 75 Earth years, humans had become more than just another species in the galactic soup. They were the glue, not the strongest, not the most advanced. But damn if they hadn't mastered the art of making others talk, of making sworn enemies sit across a table and see sense. And now there was no glue, just fraying threads. "We need to understand why," hissed Chancellor Viren of the Nolak, her 6 tendrils twitching in agitation. "What did we do to push them away?" That was the unspoken question buzzing in every delegate's mind. The truth was, they'd been pushing for a while. Humanity had raised concerns, small at first, about how resources were allocated, about corruption in certain council decisions, about the blatant exploitation of weaker civilizations in the Outrim sectors. But their voices were always brushed aside. A young species, a sentimental species, too emotional. No one took them seriously. Until now. Now, the consequences of that arrogance were beginning to unfold. Without Earth's balancing force, decades-old ceasefires were beginning to crack. Trade deals were falling through. The ruthless species, the ones who had once feared human intervention, were sharpening their knives. And worst of all, rumors were spreading. Whispers in the underdark of communication networks. The humans are preparing for something. They didn't leave to hide. They left to build. Earth has gone dark before, and when they returned, empires fell. At that exact moment, Ambassador Tyron of the Zek Alliance stood, his normally serene expression etched with alarm. "We underestimated them," he said slowly. "We thought their power was in diplomacy, but their true strength was in choice, and they've just chosen not to save us this time." The chamber fell into a heavier silence than before. It was the sound of a galaxy finally realizing the humans had been holding back. And now, they'd stopped holding anything at all. Ambassador Tyran's words echoed long after the council dismissed for emergency recess. Delegates scrambled, not to solve the crisis, but to figure out how much worse it could get. No one wanted to be the first to say it, but they all felt it gnawing at the edges of their minds. What if humanity never comes back? In the halls of the core diplomatic tower, Ambassador Verka of the Talari Confederacy slithered through the marble corridor, her neural assistant blipping non-stop with encrypted messages. Behind her mask of diplomacy was panic, raw and rising. The Talari economy was tied heavily to human tech patents. Even with all their advancements, it was Earth's neuroreactive alloys and AI moderation systems that powered over half the fleet communications across their systems. She opened a channel to her homeworld. "Cut all projections involving Terran technologies. Prepare fallback systems. divert research toward synthetic alternatives. Her voice was low, sharp. "What happened, Verka?" her prime overseer asked. "We pushed them too far," she replied simply. "Now we're going to pay." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the ripple effect had begun to take a more visible form. On the planet Voltron 9, an old border world, the long-standing truce between the Garrosh Syndicate and the Umbral Houses was already breaking. The Garrosh launched a targeted strike on a disputed refinery, claiming the humans were no longer around to enforce peace. The Umbrals responded in kind, unleashing autonomous drones into Garrosh space. Before the end of the day, 12 systems were plunged into chaos. And yet Earth remained silent. From the surface of the lunar relay station, now manned solely by Terran AI, no messages were sent. The humans had not just withdrawn from diplomacy, they'd withdrawn from visibility. No ships entered or exited their usual patrol corridors. No response to the Council's increasingly desperate hails. It was as if Earth had become a black hole of intentions, everything known, now unknowable. Chancellor Viren convened a private emergency meeting with the inner circle of the Galactic Defense Corps. "We must assume the worst," she said. "They've cut off all talks, removed their observers, and neutralized their listening posts. That's not a protest. That's preparation." "For what?" asked General Krull of the Histari Armada, his voice a low rumble. Viren hesitated. "Independence. From us." The general scoffed. "Humans always wanted to be part of the Council. It gave them legitimacy." "No," Viren corrected, her voice bitter. "We gave them legitimacy when it suited us, when they cleaned up our messes, fixed our wars, taught us how to coexist, but we never respected them. Not really." And now, the humans had given their answer. That same night, deep inside a classified station orbiting Jupiter, Admiral Caney of the Terran Inner Fleet reviewed the last of the transmission logs. The Council had sent 32 messages, all unanswered. And now they'd stopped. "Any movement from the Volton cluster?" Caney asked. His adjutant nodded. 3 skirmishes, 2 Council vessels destroyed, 1 refugee ship raided. Caney stared at the screen for a long time. Then, finally, he spoke. "We gave them peace. They didn't value it. Let them see what the galaxy looks like without us." Behind him, Earth's defense grid lit up. Silent, invisible to outsiders, and terrifyingly prepared. Because the humans weren't disappearing. They were retreating, strategically, silently, and everyone in the galaxy was about to learn what that really meant. The stars above Earth gleamed with deceptive calm, but behind that quiet shimmer was a machine of terrifying potential. Humanity hadn't gone dormant. They'd gone inward, consolidating, calculating, preparing. From the outer moons of Neptune to the hidden bases under Europa's icy crust, Terran systems operated on strict silence protocols. No transmissions, no leaks. Just the steady hum of a civilization folding into itself. Deliberately. Admiral Caney stood inside the darkened operations nexus of the Terran High Command, surrounded by flickering holoscreens projecting galactic conflict zones. Sector by sector, chaos was blooming. The fragile order the Council had taken for granted was now unraveling like a poorly sewn cloak. Earth had been the stitch, and they had ripped it out. He turned to Director Ilara Mendez, chief strategist of Earth's Diplomatic Security Initiative. Her face was pale, lit in soft blue from the floating data panels. "How long before the Council sends ships into Sol?" Caney asked. "They're scared. But they're not stupid," Ilara replied. "They know crossing into Terran space could mean war. For now they'll keep begging us to return. But that won't last." Caney nodded slowly. "And when the first desperate faction makes a move? Then we show them why diplomacy was always the better option." She tapped a series of commands into her wrist interface, and the screens changed. Tactical overlays of new orbital arrays, AI defense systems, autonomous swarm interceptors. These were the things humans had built in silence. Not weapons for conquest, but shields meant to ensure no one ever tried to conquer them. Back in the Galactic Council, the mood had shifted from confusion to paranoia. No official statement from Earth had come since their withdrawal, and the Council's most powerful races were starting to accuse one another of provoking the Terrans. Ambassador Krall stood in front of the central chamber again, his gill-like membranes quivering. We are witnessing the collapse of our diplomatic foundation. If Earth no longer participates in this council, then we must consider alternative measures for stability, or we admit we're nothing without them, spat Councillor Narex of the Volcari Dominion. His silver crest bristled with rage. This council always coddled the humans, made them feel equal. But they are not gods. They are not invincible. No one responded. Not because they agreed, but because even their silence betrayed fear. Ambassador Tyran broke it. You still don't understand, he said, calm and composed. The humans didn't leave because they're weak. They left because they know they don't need us. But we need them. Then go grovel at their gates, Narex hissed. Tyran looked him in the eye. No one will survive if Earth turns hostile. We should be doing everything to avoid that. Far from the Council, deep in the Andoran Fracture, an asteroid-dense mining system, another sign of the Terran void, was making waves. The Andari Corporation, an Earth-backed mining conglomerate, had ceased operations just days after Earth's withdrawal. Without human oversight, multiple species moved in to take over the rich mineral fields. Within hours, a rogue Kalari fleet seized a refinery. But before they could finish reprogramming the facility, the entire system shut down. Then, one by one, the Kalari ships vanished. Not destroyed, not even attacked. Just gone. No trace, no distress calls, just silence. A single encrypted message was left behind on a dormant frequency. We are no longer playing by your rules. Terran command. Word spread like wildfire. Within days, systems with hidden Terran investments went dark. Fleets disappeared, data servers auto-purged, and critical infrastructure crumbled. Humanity hadn't just walked away. They'd programmed their systems to pull everything down behind them. On a council news stream, a headline flashed in bold red text. Earth ghosts the galaxy. Infrastructure collapses across 12 sectors. Back on Earth, Caney walked through the silent corridors of the Terran Assembly. The politicians no longer argued. There were no more debates. Just one unified directive. Secure Earth, watch the stars burn, and only return when the galaxy was begging, truly begging, for peace. At the center of it all sat the Earth AI core, silent and immense, quietly running projections of future galactic scenarios. Caney stood before it and asked, "How long until they fracture completely?" The AI responded in a calm, synthetic voice. 27 days, 74% probability of galactic-wide conflict without Terran mediation. And after that? High probability they will come crawling. He didn't smile. He just whispered under his breath. Then we'll see who values peace. 21 days had passed. The Galactic Council was barely holding together. What used to be the nerve center of galactic diplomacy had become a circus of blame, fear, and suspicion. Treaties were unraveling like dry parchment. Border disputes that had been frozen under human negotiation boiled over into open hostilities, and in the center of it all, a quiet, human-shaped void no one dared to fill. Councillor Ozkek paced the corridor of the diplomatic wing like a caged animal. His claws scraped the metal floors with every frustrated step. "This is unsustainable," he barked to his aide. "How did one species, Just one. Hold the whole damn galaxy together." "They didn't," his aide replied quietly. "They just knew how to make everyone else believe they could." Oskek stopped. That was the problem, wasn't it? The Terrans had spun a narrative of peace, unity, reason. And for some insane reason, it had worked. They'd made mortal enemies talk. They'd made ancient grudges feel like relics of a dumber past. And now that narrative had collapsed. All the old hatred was clawing its way back up through the cracks. In a distant corner of council-controlled space, a freighter convoy belonging to the Yilar dynasty was ambushed. The attackers wore no flags. They moved like ghosts. Their ships didn't match any recognized registry, but they didn't need to, because they were human, not Earth's military, not officially, no insignia, no hail. But they moved with the precision of Terran special forces, and they left the same calling card after disabling the Yilar ships without a single casualty. "Stay out of Terran-registered sectors. You are being watched." The footage leaked within hours. Panic rippled through the galactic net. Had Earth gone rogue? Were humans now policing the stars without oversight? In truth, no one knew, and that made it worse. At Terran High Command, Admiral Caney watched the intercepted transmission in silence. "They're not ours," Ilara Mendez said, arms folded, "but they're definitely trained." Caney didn't answer. He already knew the truth. Earth hadn't told its Black Ops units to stand down after the withdrawal. No, they'd simply vanished from official channels and gone freelance. "You think they're acting on their own?" he asked. "They're loyal," Ilara said, "but they're tired of being ignored, of holding the leash while getting bitten. Now they're sending a message. Humans don't need permission to protect their own." Caney sighed. "And what happens when the Council decides to respond with force?" "They won't," Ilara said. "They're too fractured, and too afraid. Besides, they still don't know how many of us were embedded in their systems." That much was true. In the last decade, Earth had embedded Terran advisors in dozens of planetary administrations, supply chains, and military operations. Most thought they were just liaisons, goodwill consultants. But now, as critical processes failed, planets were realizing just how many human hands had kept things running. On Meraxis Prime, a planet home to 10 billion and a key trade junction, the planetary weather control satellites went down. Crops withered. Storms hit. The planet begged the Council for aid. But the backup systems? All Terran-made, all encrypted, all offline. Another message blinked onto their screens. "You treated our cooperation as dependence. You forgot what independence looks like." Back in the Council chamber, things had gone from desperate to delusional. Some factions were demanding Earth be labeled a rogue state. Others begged for re-engagement. One proposed a bounty on Terran commanders. It was chaos. Ambassador Turan stood slowly and addressed the hall with a grim calm. "You are all fools if you think threats will work. Earth chose diplomacy for your benefit, not because they were weak, but because they were merciful. They have the power to bring entire systems to their knees, and all they've done so far is disappear." A silence fell across the chamber. "They are not attacking us," Turan continued. "Not yet, but they're letting us see what we really are without them, frightened children in a crumbling empire." And then, just as the Council descended into another shouting match, a signal came through. A transmission. From Earth, encrypted, unmistakably human, and directed at everyone. Council leaders, fringe colonies, pirate syndicates, and sovereign empires alike. The message was simple. "We are watching. Every system, every failure, every betrayal. You had your chance to build peace. Now you will earn our silence, or suffer its consequences." No one dared respond. No one dared ask what came next. The stars never looked so still. Across the galaxy, the Terran message echoed like a death knell. "We are watching." That was all they needed to say. No ultimatums, no declarations of war. Just an assertion of presence, silent, looming, and suffocating. It was a ghost that followed every ship launch, every council directive, every unauthorized border crossing. And no one knew where the line was anymore, because Earth hadn't drawn one. In the far-off Argent sector, a minor skirmish between the Kern Dominion and the Brel Syndicate erupted over a trade station once regulated under Terran oversight. Within hours, both sides found their weapons disabled mid-firing sequence. No explosion, no external attack, just a synchronized systems blackout. Then came the audio message, cutting through every channel. "You are not children. Learn to act like it." Neither side claimed victory. Neither side dared retaliate. The Kern retreated first. Back on Earth, Admiral Caney sat with President Reese in the subterranean war room, both men bathed in the flicker of interstellar live feeds. Reese looked older than the last time the Admiral had seen him. Worn down by leadership, by the burden of doing nothing, yet causing everything. "They're begging us to return now," Reese muttered, sliding through plea after plea from the council. "Some of them are even offering concessions, power seats, unilateral vetoes. Can you believe that?" Caney raised an eyebrow. "Now they remember our value." "It's pathetic," Reese said. "Where was this when our envoys were being undermined? When we warned them about the Drek exploiting the mining colonies on Voss 4, or when we caught the Volcari laundering weapons through the refugee corridors?" "They thought we'd bark, but never bite," Caney said simply. "Now they know we don't even need to bark. Silence is louder." Reese leaned back, tired. "But how long do we play this out? We've shut down half the galaxy's operations by simply withdrawing. Is it enough?" Caney didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pointed at a blinking alert. "Brellian refugees. Thousands stranded. No aid coming. Food's running out." "Another casualty of a broken system," Reese murmured. Caney nodded. "But they're innocent. We could send covert relief, unmarked, non-claimable." "And undermine the whole lesson?" Reese asked. "What's the point of making them realize their dependence if we keep saving them anyway?" Caney paused. "What if we save only the innocent, but punish those in charge?" Reese considered it. A new kind of diplomacy, built in the shadows. Meanwhile, across the stars, conspiracy theories bloomed like wildfire. Some claimed humans had discovered a higher state of existence, ascension into a digital godhood. Others whispered that Earth had forged secret alliances with ancient civilizations beyond known space. One popular theory even accused humanity of building a kill switch inside every council-aligned AI system, one they could trigger at will. None of it was confirmed, but none of it could be disproven either. That was the genius of it. On Caraxa 3, a once vibrant trade world, protests filled the streets. People blamed their leaders for alienating Earth. "Bring back the humans," one massive banner read in intergalactic common. Another, more ominous, said, "If Earth is gone, who's left to keep the monsters at bay?" Ambassador Virka of the Talari Confederacy, once among Earth's most vocal critics, now found herself sending daily messages toward Sol. Her language had changed, no longer dismissive or demanding. Her latest transmission, intercepted by Terran intelligence, read simply, "We were wrong. I was wrong. Please, help us rebuild." Earth didn't reply, but Caney saw it. "She's just the first," Ilara said, stepping into the room. Caney nodded. "Soon they'll all come, not for negotiation, but for penance." She looked at him carefully. "And will we forgive them?" He stared at the screen, then shook his head. "We won't forgive. We'll reshape." Because this wasn't about revenge. It never had been. It was about making them feel the weight of what they lost, and making sure they never dared to take it for granted again. The 6 council ships entered Sol's space without fanfare, without weapons raised. They came bearing white light comms, universal signs of non-aggression. Their leaders were aboard, or at least what was left of them. Chancellor Viren, Ambassador Kral, Councillor Ozkek, and 3 others representing fractured blocks desperate to hold their empires together. The humans had not invited them, but they came anyway. As their ships reached the outer perimeter of Earth's defense grid, they were stopped by a silent wall of Terran satellites, orbiting like sentinels. No hails returned, no permission granted, just an undeniable message in their path. Turn back. But they didn't. They waited. Inside her chamber, Chancellor Viren sat stiffly, staring through the viewport at the blue marble of Earth. "They're watching," she whispered. "I know they are." Ozkek scoffed. "If they wanted to vaporize us, they would have done it already." "That's not their way," Krail murmured. "Not unless we give them a reason." Hours passed. No movement, no warning. And then, at precisely the 6-hour mark, the lead Terran satellite rotated and projected a single corridor, 1 ship allowed through. The others were instructed to remain outside Sol's inner perimeter. Viren's shuttle was granted passage. She didn't question it. She just boarded it, hands trembling, mind reeling. As she descended into Earth's upper atmosphere, the silence was deafening. No chatter, no guidance, only the unspoken pressure of being summoned by a force that had abandoned language for consequences. Her shuttle landed on a landing platform outside what used to be Geneva's intergalactic embassy. The area was pristine but empty. No guards, no welcoming party, just a long walkway, and at the end of it, 1 figure. Admiral Caney. He stood still, arms behind his back, as the wind blew softly over the silent complex. Viren approached, each step weighed with regret. When she stopped before him, she lowered her head. Not out of weakness, but necessity. "I come not with threats," she said quietly, "but with truth." Caney gave a faint nod. "We've been listening." Viren's eyes flicked upward. "Then you know. The Council is collapsing. The Drek have declared martial rule over 4 sectors. The Volcari are annexing neutral trade routes. Thousands are dying. We've tried. Without you." "I know," Caney replied, voice flat. "And I know," she added, eyes tightening, "we don't deserve your return. Not after how we treated your people, your diplomats, your warnings. But I ask anyway. What do we need to do?" For a long moment, Caney said nothing. Then he turned slightly and motioned toward the horizon. "You see that?" he asked. Viren turned her gaze. In the distance stood a new kind of building, sleek, metallic, alive with Terran tech. Unlike the old embassies and council towers, it wasn't meant for negotiation. It looked more like a command center. "That is the Nexus Directive Hub," Caney said. "It will be the core of Terran diplomatic operations going forward. Not a meeting place, a decision engine." Viren blinked. "You're building your own council?" "No," he said. "We're building a system that doesn't depend on begging, on hierarchy, on games. We will offer aid when it's earned, peace when it's kept, protection only when it does not cost our dignity. We are not returning. We are rising." She swallowed hard. "And what role does the old council have in this future?" Caney looked her straight in the eyes. "None." Silence passed between them. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't angry. It was final. "I see," she said. "Then this was our reckoning." "No," Caney replied. "This was your chance to see what Earth really is. Not your peacekeeper, not your pawn, but your proof. That mercy has limits." As Viren turned to leave, Her steps felt heavier than when she'd arrived. Not because she'd failed, but because she finally understood that she never really saw the humans for what they were. They weren't warriors. They weren't diplomats. They were survivors. And now, they were kings. Back in council space, the aftermath of Viren's return rippled like a shockwave. She didn't bring salvation. She brought a message, and that message chilled every delegate to their bones. Earth isn't coming back. Not to your table, not to your rules, not to your system. And worse, they're building their own. The message reached every corner of the crumbling Galactic Council. Systems once smug in their superiority were now scrambling for contingency plans. Everyone had assumed humanity needed the Council to survive. Now it was clear. It had been the other way around all along. On the desert world of Zorith 7, once a strategic hub under human arbitration, the Volcari had moved in. They claimed stabilization efforts. In truth, it was conquest. Local leaders resisted, but they had no weapons, no backing. Earth had left them behind, or so they thought. In the black of night, the Volcari command base was struck with pinpoint precision. Power grids failed. Ammo depots exploded in controlled burns. No civilian casualties. Every Volcari officer was found unconscious in their quarters. And painted across the command center wall in Terran military code, "This world remembers Earth. We remember it too. No broadcast, no footage released, just the bodies and the silence that followed." The Volcari pulled out within the week. This was becoming Earth's new diplomacy. Anonymous justice. President Reese paced inside the Terran assembly, reading the latest intelligence reports. All around him, military brass and civilian leaders coordinated in harmony. No Senate squabbles, no lobbying. Earth had moved past politics. What they were building now was purpose. "We've identified 16 more Council-aligned colonies where collapse is imminent," said Alara Mendez, projecting a glowing galaxy map. "They're low resource, politically insignificant, but people are starving, dying." "Can we reach them?" Reese asked. "Yes, but if we intervene, it won't be quiet. It'll be seen." "Let them see," Reese said firmly. "But not as a rescue, as a standard. These colonies survive because Earth says they matter, and the Council let them rot." Caney, who'd stood silently nearby, finally spoke. "What happens when the Council tries to claim credit?" he asked. "They'll spin it. Say we're returning to the fold." Reese shook his head. "Then we make it clear. Earth doesn't return. Earth leads. And anyone who wants to follow can start by tearing down that broken monument they call the Council." At that same moment, a new broadcast pulsed across the galaxy. It wasn't from the Council. It wasn't from a government. It was from Earth. A single high-definition feed, decrypted by every major relay station within minutes. President Reese stood before a reformed Earth flag. No stars, no stripes. Just a white circle over a dark field. Unity in the void. He spoke with no podium, no fanfare, just conviction. "You believed our silence was surrender. It wasn't. It was disgust. Disgust at the corruption, the exploitation, the selective peace you dared to call diplomacy. We brokered truces while you armed your friends. We held the line while you redrew maps. We bled while you traded. But no more. Earth is no longer a participant in the Council's games. We are not your mediator, not your enforcer, not your buffer. We are building something new, not for power, but for justice. If your people are suffering and your leaders fail you, reach out, not as diplomats, as survivors. We will answer. Not with speeches, but with solutions. But know this. We do not forgive. We remember. Earth remembers every slight, every insult, every ambassador silenced, every colony abandoned. And if you come for us again, if you try to control, infiltrate, or manipulate, we will not negotiate. We will erase." Across 1,000 systems, the message sent shockwaves. On core worlds, leaders trembled. On border planets, people cheered. In slave colonies and war-torn sectors, children stared at the screen with something they hadn't felt in years. Hope. Earth had become more than a power. It was a reckoning, a myth reborn in real time. The myth became a movement. Across the stars, the name Earth was no longer spoken with dismissal or irritation. It was whispered like a warning or a prayer. Earth hadn't fired a single shot in open war. They hadn't launched a fleet or claimed new territory. And yet the galaxy was shifting around them, like metal drawn to an unseen magnetic force. The Council, once towering in prestige and self-importance, was now a hollow structure clinging to legacy. Meetings grew shorter, less attended. Delegates withdrew, one after the other, citing internal instability or redirected focus. But everyone knew the truth. The galaxy no longer listened to them. They listened to Earth. Even the Drek, warlike and proud, began pulling troops back from aggressive outposts, not out of diplomacy, but caution. They had reviewed the incident on Zorith 7. They'd seen what humans could do without ever being seen. Their own generals quietly began reaching out through third-party intermediaries, asking what it might take to earn Earth's respect. The humans never replied. Instead, Earth expanded its Nexus network, autonomous hubs built across the Sol system and surrounding neutral zones. They weren't embassies. They weren't fortresses. They were answers, places where starving colonies could apply for food assistance, where war orphans were taken in, where former diplomats became teachers and engineers, rebuilding from the ashes of the systems they had once tried to save through talk alone. And everywhere the Nexus appeared, one truth became clear. Earth had stopped asking for permission. On a fractured moon colony once ruled by the Zarn warlords, a group of children gathered near a steel platform lit by clean Terran lights. A voice came from a nearby speaker, soft and human. "This is Nexus Station 9. You are safe. You are fed. You are free." One child, skinny, eyes wide, whispered to his sister, "Is Earth real?" She nodded slowly. "They don't talk much, but when they do, everything changes." Back on Earth, deep in the Nexus Directive Hub, Admiral Caney stood alongside President Reese and Alara Mendez. Before them, the galaxy shimmered on a holomap. Each blinking light showed a system under Terran humanitarian assistance. The board was getting crowded. Reese watched it quietly, then asked, "How long until the Council collapses completely?" Alara tapped her wrist. "We give it weeks, maybe less. Tyron's trying to hold the inner sectors together, but no one's listening. And those who are listening to him because he agrees with us now." Caney crossed his arms. "Tyron understands. He always did. But he was bound by that council code, their illusion of order." "He's already sent word," Alara added. "He's asking if Earth will take over arbitration duties, officially." Reese didn't even blink. "We're not replacing their system. We're burying it. And what we build will never become what they did." A moment passed. Then Caney said quietly, "We'll need to make hard decisions." Reese nodded. "That's what makes us human. We don't fear hard choices. We fear what happens when no one makes them." At that same hour, in a shadowed chamber within the crumbling council tower, Ambassador Tyran stood alone before a dying console. Around him, the halls were empty, the lights dim. The great voices of galactic unity had all gone quiet. He opened a final transmission channel and spoke not to his peers, but directly to Earth. "You were right. We feared your strength, so we tried to contain it. We envied your unity, so we undermined it. And when you gave us peace, we spit on it. Now I only ask one thing. Teach us. Don't return to us. Let us come to you, not as equals." As students, he hit send. No response came, not immediately. But hours later, a small package arrived in his chamber. Not a weapon, not a threat. A book. Old. Bound in leather. Terran Principles of Restoration. Inside the cover, a handwritten note. We are not above you. We are just not behind you anymore. Across the galaxy, Earth continued its quiet campaign. Not of conquest, but of consequence. No flags, no kings, no demands. Only this. If you want peace, you'll have to prove you deserve it. And thus, Earth rose, not as a ruler, but as a mirror, in which every species would finally see itself, and decide whether it could live with what stared back,